Welcome to the Gigging Gurus podcast, the ultimate guide navigating the mysterious world of music freelancing. I'm your host, Buffy Jacobs. Each episode, we will dive into the experiences and insights of successful musicians who have taken unconventional paths to their success. Tune in for engaging conversations, actionable advice, and inspiring stories that will motivate and empower you. Today's guest is Scott Tixier, a six-time affiliated Grammy Award-winning French jazz violinist and 2018 Downbeat Critic Poll winner. He has performed, recorded, and toured with jazz legends and music icons such as Stevie Wonder, Kenny Barron, Elton John, Pink Floyd, Chaka Khan, Earth, Wind & Fire, Ed Sheeran, Cassandra Wilson, Coldplay, Chris Potter, John Legend, Christina Aguilera, Natalie Cole, Anthony Braxton, Ariana Grande, Adele, and that's just to name a few. Join us for episode 2 of the Gigging Gurus, welcoming Scott Tixier. Scott Tixier, how's it going?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, Buffy. It's really good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you, hear you. Well, you have had an exciting week. So tell us about the Grammy affiliation win with Jon Batiste.
Yeah, I was on the project with Jon Batiste for American Symphony, and so it won the Grammy, and so I'm excited to add the certificate on my wall and hanging out with myself and my achievements. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. It's cool. It's a cool thing. I
would actually love to hear about that experience because I actually watched it on Netflix as a lot of other people did, I'm sure. And I was in Texas actually, staying with my friend Heather, and I walk in the living room and she's got the sniffles and like watching this beautiful piece on Netflix. And I walk in, I was like, what are you watching? Oh, that's my friend, Scott Tixier. I see, So yeah, tell us about that.
So yeah, it took a few years to do the project itself and to make it like work with everybody's schedule because it was a big ensemble, and some things happen in between with COVID and things. So there are like some rescheduling, and so. How
big was the ensemble? Well, what did that involve?
Yeah, it was a small orchestra, acoustic orchestra with electric instruments. So there are like electric guitar, electric bassoon, some organ, church organ, like organ B3. And then there are like also a few different rhythm sections from different styles. So in the movie, actually, you don't see everything because the movie was around the life of Suleika and Jon Batiste. So we are part of the movie because we're playing at Carnegie Hall, this symphony that he wrote. But the movie is more about his life for over 2 years or more. So like what we did here during the movie was like rehearsals. You see us rehearse, and the actual project was like a lot of different style together that represented basically Jon influences and upbringing as a jazz musician, but also as a musician in general. And so he put basically together the people that he met throughout his life as a musician, as an artist, since he started as a kid, but also coming to New York City when he was younger, and from playing like in a subway to playing in jazz clubs, and then playing with major artists, and then playing on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, like being a director. So there are like so many different kind of styles. Even there are like a fiddle player with a jazz violinist and classical violinist, somebody that was from very different tradition. They're a blues guitar player mixed with a symphonic orchestra. It was a very challenging project for those reasons, because everybody had a different way of approaching music, and even like rehearsing music or was challenging, because some people needed certain parts, some of them couldn't use the part, they didn't want to, or they not used to it, or some people really needed the part. So for all those reasons, it was a very challenging ship to navigate.
It was something very, very stunning, and I enjoyed watching it. And I'm sure it was even more thrilling to be a part of that, like musically. That's so congratulations on that. That was something.
Thank you. Yeah, it was very something for me to full circle moments with seeing Jon after knowing Jon for so many years, like probably like 14 years now. Jon and
Where did you meet?
We met in a subway.
Really?
Jon and I, we have the same exact birthday. I mean, like not exact, but the same year, 1986. Jon came to New York approximately at the same time when I came to New York in 2007. I used to take the subway, the A train to 96th Street to play at Cleopatra's Needle. Actually, it was the one train. And I used to stop at 96th Street to play at Cleopatra's Needle. It was a jazz club where Jon was also going for jam sessions. So we used to ride back together at 2 a.m. in the morning, even see each other like sometimes like in random places, like in clubs, and across his path again when he was working for Stephen Kohlberg as the music director, because I was playing at that moment a lot of shows. I was always seeing him, and he was always like saying, "Hey, what's up?" Like, so
that guy again.
Exactly. So he knew I was a jazz musician, but everybody else was like mostly classical string player. So when someday I received a DM on my Instagram from him saying, "Hey man, do you wanna play in a project with me? I'd love to do something with you." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, absolutely. Where is it? When?" He say you'll be in touch, and then I got a message from his manager to play at Carnegie Hall as a soloist, so in his symphony. And he told me, "Are you comfortable improvising?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely."
A little, yeah.
Actually, I'm only comfortable improvising. I don't want to read. And so everybody had a part except for me. All the violinists had a part, and for me, he came to my stand and say, "Man, whatever you feel, whatever you can imagine, just play, and we'll see if it fits, and if we keep it or not, and it'll be a workshop." And I ended up improvising all my parts,
Wow. Well, that's actually, sometimes that can be really nice. Like, but and other times it can be quite terrifying to walk in with a blank canvas and have no idea what you're going to do. What goes on in your brain when you walk into a project like that?
So for me, actually, I really need this kind of project, because anything else stress me out. For me, when they send me the music in advance, or when people send me everything I'm going to play, I'm stressed, because I'm like, oh wow, they have a very stiff, clear, precise vision, and I need to fit exactly what they're asking. So for many years, I was really stressed with sessions, and I was over practicing when people were telling me, "Hey, that's going to be easy, that's going to be cool." I was sweating like 4 days before. I was like practicing like literally 5 hours per day. Like the actual session, most of the time was super easy line, but I was so scared to not blend in, that I was like practicing, and then I arrived to a session and I realized there's like 40 people playing the same part, and I'm like, why did I practice? Like, why did I use my like? But when I come to sessions where it's jazz or improvise or anything that is not written, and where they tell me, "Hey, there's no part," I always feel like, wow, thank you. I feel so good right now. So I guess I have a different, because I noticed some of my colleagues where they get like really they need to know a little bit in advance what's going to happen. And for me, I'm confident that I can create the music on the spot, and I want a project where there's nothing prepared. Almost, I mean, like to an extent. When I went, I have an example when I was on tour with Charlotte Moffett. He was a great jazz bassist. He played with Mike Tyner trio for a long time, and he was a child prodigy, but he played bass, and so he was the leader of a band. And we were going to rehearsal in New York City, playing for like a few days, and then we had a tour or something like this in Europe. And in the middle of a tour or the first day of a tour, he would be backstage and be like, "Hey, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to do a brand new tune, and here is a tune." He would play it on the bass backstage and say, "You got it? Let's go on stage." And I play it. And that was a little bit stressful because he wanted to do a brand new tune, and there are no chart, and I was not prepared, and he asked me to play exactly what he just played on the bass, and it was pretty fast. If you know Charlotte Moffett, is like a virtuoso he plays super, super fast, and it's like very energetic and aggressive. So, and he will lock eye with me, and if I make one mistake, and it happened all the time because I couldn't remember exactly where, he would be like sweating and upset and be like, call me out on stage, like, play the damn line, man. Like, and I was like, and I choose to play fast. Like, anyway, so that moment was like hard.
But when, well, let's get into that. You know, as musicians, when we're in a setting like that and the expectations are high, you want to make people comfortable so that they're going to rise to the occasion, and so that they will do the best that they can do. And I feel like once you get in their head or make them feel insecure, I mean, we're already insecure enough, as humans. It's just, you want to make a point to make people comfortable so that they'll relax and not be self-conscious. I mean, because it's kind of like putting hands around your throat and choking the life out of you a little bit. Have you had a lot of experiences working in those high stress settings, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to finally talk about this. It's kind of a trauma.
It's traumatic, right?
It happened to me many times. And for some reason, it doesn't happen anymore. Maybe because now I don't allow things like this. But at a certain time...
By allow things like this, you mean you don't put yourself
in those
stressful situations with people who treat you that way or who act like that. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. Because I used to say yes to everything. And it's also important when you try to establish your presence in a city or on a certain network or industry. You have to say yes sometimes, and sometimes you learn by saying yes, even if it's a little bit above your abilities or your skill, and you say yes anyway. And because you're young and not young, or because you are developing something and you're trying to find a new community for yourself or something like this. So I did say yes to everything without looking at it, what it was. Each time somebody will call me, I will say, yes, I'm available. Unless I was not available, but most of the time I was always available. So it happened many times where I would be working to a situation where I was judged and attacked in a way because something was not clear, or the part was, for example, one time somebody sent me a part, but it never arrived because I was living in a kind of a remote neighborhood in Brooklyn where my mailbox would be always robbed by like some people that were in the street because there are like a lot of drug trafficking where I was living at the time, and people will take anything in the mailbox just to sell it for crack or whatever. So the music never arrived.
Sheet music, who knew? You know,
exactly. So they sent me a big envelope with all the music. I never received it, and they never communicated with me. So I arrived to rehearsal, and the music was very challenging, and I'm a jazz musician on top of that. So I was with a bunch of classical people that are used to side read, and they are doing other things. They side read every day. And for me, I side read less and less. More I develop my career as a jazz musician, the more I write my own music. So I don't have to play other people's music. Or when I do, it's jazz. It's like something I get easily. But when it's like contemporary stuff and that are across genre and sounds like more like classical than jazz, it's more challenging for me for many reasons. But I still adapt and try to do it. But if I don't have any notice plus the pressure, I find myself in a situation, and I had to make it happen because I was there already. It's too late. And when I said I never received music, I got like, what? You never received? Like, I got almost like, wow, you're lazy, or like, it's your fault. And I couldn't even explain myself. Say, I live in this place like where with roaches and crack people, but take my things.
Yeah.
So I don't have a choice. I'm sorry, I did my best. I don't even have a hot water right now. So it's like I came to they didn't know all those things, but. So it was stressful, and other situation where this is just like people that are not used to hear people from different musical backgrounds. So if they ask me something, they made a mistake by calling me because they called me for classical, playing Haydn for a gig in an orchestra, or playing Mozart. And to play Mozart quartet or whatever it is, like even to play Mozart, for me, it's not in my skill set, but I can make it if you give me time. But at that time, they wanted me to sound exactly like somebody who was like passionate and has done only classical work like this and Mozart, and it was very challenging for me to play it. And as I was side reading Mozart, and I made it happen.
Yeah,
but
for a violinist, a lot of notes.
Exactly, a lot of notes, and I felt. Also, the bow is different, and I was like, I made it. I don't know where of those videos, but I was young, and it worked. But the amount of pressure to make it work, to not stumble into this pressure, and I must have been like young and just like very, very strong, because today if something happened like this, I would lose it. But like. At the time, it was my survival mode. I needed to pay rent. I needed to make the gig. So I was just not saying anything and try to make it to the end of the gig. My goal was, and so to cope with that, to respond to your questions, when I see everything becomes blurry around you, and basically everything tell you that you're going to die. And then I realized, okay, I'm not going to die. And if I can focus on the rhythm was my strength, and it's not rhythm, it's almost like my sense of time. So I know I can feel the form, I can feel the beginning of a bar, the end of a bar. So I'm going to focus on every beginning of the downbeat of every bar, and in between I'm going to let it and trust it. And even if I miss something, I will be always in sync with the time. And I noticed that it was working for me if I was doing this, even with very challenging music. So that was one of way to cope with it and to hold on and just like hold on.
That's
to the
really
thing.
interesting. So instead of like spiraling out of control, which most of us would do, I definitely have my own battles with anxiety, but you recognized your skill set and what would work to what would work to make it happen. Like being able, okay, well, my time is good, so the time's going to be there. Identifying patterns, because as a jazz musician, I'm sure you were constantly, identifying patterns and just letting the rest take care of itself. Well, these are the things I can do. let's trust ourselves and let it work, allow it to work, instead of going into fight or flight. Because I definitely have that issue where I'll lose focus, and my focus will be everywhere. And I make stupid mistakes, and one mistake turns into another mistake and another mistake, So it's really, it's really great when you can identify, okay, this is a scary situation. Yes, allow yourself to have that moment where you identify that situation. Okay, scary, but we got to make this work. How are we going to do it? Go into survival mode, So yeah, I think that's a very valuable thing to pass along to other musicians who are coming up the ladder, because everybody's going to have that experience, right?
Yeah.
Where we say yes to something that maybe we shouldn't have, or we don't get the music, something is off with the experience.
But it's how you learn too, because so many times, still today, sometimes I say no to some things just because I felt that I was not at my best to do that. Like I was not going to put myself in the best situation now that I can choose more what I say yes or no to. But to come back to that, like I think for me it's the same thing. It's not about music. It's really about like how you manage a challenging situation or an extremely precarious or almost dramatic situation, and how do you make it not the end of your life? Is it not going to be the end of everything? And I noticed it applied to many different things in my life. When I was dealing with very challenging stuff, personal stuff, I use the same mechanism where I isolate each element and I try to say, okay, this is what bothers. I try to understand exactly why it triggers me, why I feel bad, and what can I do to still survive and make something practical that will make me feel slightly more present, aware, and in control. And sometimes it's like letting control go. It's letting it go. So sometimes it's not control, but how do you know what you can manage, what you can't, and one by one? Because all the elements put together, it creates a problem. But when you detangle everything and you just look at one, at the problem as many different tasks, then it helps sometimes for me to make it more manageable in a way.
Yeah. No, that's good. Do you recognize this with a lot of your students? Do you see them falling prey to this situation? And then how do you prepare them to go out into the real world and deal with these things?
Yes, that's the most challenging thing actually with my students, because in order to prepare somebody, they have to be teachable. They have to trust the teacher and trust. But there's another problem that comes before being able to address this. I need to earn their trust, and also. And
how do you earn their trust?
Exactly. I'm still trying to figure that out. I've been because some people I can understand, and it's pretty fast for them to really like understand where I'm coming from and what I'm trying to pass on. So they have a better time when it comes to stress, because I can address and I can help them manage the thing. And there's always like something, when you're studying in a university like this, you have so many other professors, so many other assignments. So there's a lot of time that is spent trying to catch up, almost. It seems like. And for me, I've never been to university, so I had to learn those things in the street, like in a way. Like I got the gigs immediately in New York, and I had to figure out how to keep getting cold, and so I can pay rent basically and eat. So for those people, the students that are at the university, is a little bit different because some of them have scholarships, so they're able to eat, and they have a place to stay, and they don't look for a place to stay or to pay rent, because it's kind of like it's built into their scholarship, or even like with the parents' help, or some of them are working also jobs outside. No, but what I'm trying to how to address this, I try to always like listen and try to understand what their specific problem, because like the challenge for me, it's like every single student has a different problem and a different background and a different way of coping and different way of a different aspiration also. They don't want all the same thing, and it becomes a very tricky thing if I apply the same thing to everyone, because then there's always somebody who's going to feel left out or over challenged or over stimulated, and they need like, some people can't take the advice like, you need to practice more, you need like they can't take it, like it's like I have to talk to them in different ways so they don't shut down, you know. So it's like it's figuring
kind of like
out.
a bit generic. Like I always felt like you need to practice with a metronome.
Yeah,
you need to practice. Just go practice. Go practice.
Yeah, cool.
I think that without an explanation behind that or a skill set, you know what I mean? It's
yeah.
I think that you have to dive deeper sometimes, or you have to show them the depth in what you're asked. That simple statement of go practice with a metronome.
Yeah.
Ooh, how do I, metronome?
What does it mean?
Yeah,
it's a metronome.
Exactly. Like I noticed that with the younger ones, because a lot of the middle school or the elementary school orchestras go practice, but there's no explanation of how to do that.
Yes, exactly. And how do you? So is it and why? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So for me, like it's also a different set of challenges because they are all in their 20s.
Yeah.
Sometimes in the 30s, sometimes in the 40s, and so students that come to me, they all come with 3 different profiles. There's a profile that the student that is really passionate about making a statement or a legacy for themselves. Like they want to be part of the music. They want to create something new. They want to be performers. They really want to be like part of the industry in a way, but in a way they want to create and make their music. So those students are passionate. So you don't need to tell them to practice or things. Like if anything, you need to you can help them like redirect their practice or something. But so that's an easy one. Then there's like the student that doesn't know why they're here. They're here because they're trying to find an answer because they feel stuck in in their musical journey, and they're not sure why they studied why they studied jazz violin or improvisation. They wanted something different than classical, but they're not sure what they're going to do with it. So the students are constantly changing because they are evolving and discovering new stuff. And they're like, oh, actually, I think I want to be a teacher. I think I want to be actually a psychologist, or like they change it. So how do I address that? Like, and then there's the last case, like the student that wants a degree because they want to have a job after, and they want a teaching job or any job. They just want a degree. They don't even care what I did. They don't know anything about me. They don't study with me intentionally because they want to learn anything I've done. I'm not a mentor to them. I'm just basically somebody with a thing to get them a degree. And those students are probably the most difficult to teach because they don't care whether it's me or a different. They just want to go through me to get the degree, so they don't want to even learn anything from me in a way. They just want their degree as fast as possible and get into the working world and use the degree to get work. So, yeah.
Would you say that they have adapted that attitude because of they don't feel like they're getting enough industry education in school?
You mean industry, like a real world education, like in the field, playing in the field?
For example, I feel like there are a lot of things that I learned in school, and there are a lot of things I didn't learn in school. And those things I feel could have helped me in the working as a freelancer in the working world. How much time do you think, and since you're now a professor at University of North Texas, let's talk a little bit about your program, how it's developed. How long have you taught at the University of North Texas?
So I've been teaching for 6 years. I think I'm on my 7th year.
So this is year 7. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and so it started with how was the program when you started? How many students?
So I started in 2018. So 2018. Yeah, 2018.
Yep, it was right as I left. Exactly. I went on tour, and you came to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So I was in New York City for 13 years, and I moved to Texas in 2018 to teach at the University of North Texas, where the program was basically brand new for the jazz string department. There were a jazz string ensemble before, but it was more like something optional on the side. Actually, I think you were part of it.
I was.
So yeah, and it was made by students, and because they wanted something different to kind of broaden their perspective with music, and there are classical students, but they did that. So when I arrived, this ensemble was no longer there, and my mission was to create a department for jazz strings. It was an alternate styles. So in alternate styles, they put fiddle in there, different like pop music, hip hop, violin, and everything. But the primary mission was to develop jazz on the violin. And when I say jazz, I'm talking about straight ahead jazz. So it was like basically what they do with the other instrument at UNT. I was supposed to do only this and do jazz violin, like the jazz trumpet or jazz piano, So I started doing this. The first year, I had a few students, I think 4, something like this. It was already not bad for first year. And but there are a lot of classical musicians from the classical department that came to my class to learn because they were curious, because the other professor was sending them. So I had more than 4. I had like 13 or 14 students, but most of them were from the majoring in classical and were not getting a degree in jazz, but they are in my class. And since I never had done that before, I started with my book that I did when I was like a teenager, and starting doing my own exercise and putting them into the theory class. And it was very challenging for them because I was going very fast and people were a little bit like overwhelmed. So I decided to do it a little bit slower the next semester, and I got more people. And then eventually it grew into a lot of violin, but I didn't have any cello or viola. So they asked me to write music for an ensemble, a jazz string ensemble, and I had no music for that. So I had to write charts and arrange violin 1, violin 2, violin 3, violin 4.
Yeah.
And make it sound like it's a cello and viola. So it was a big challenge. I was spending all my nights writing arrangements. and then coming to class and at like sometimes 4 days, 3 days notice plus all my schedule. It was very challenging to write those things because I needed to write for them to be able to read it fast. And so anyway, and little by little I started making modification to it. And after a couple of years, I had viola, then I had cello. Now, after 5 years, I did harp, French horn, piano, rhythm section, guitar.
I saw a flute in there too.
Yeah, flute, clarinet now this year too.
So it's now like a cinematic orchestra. You've got like the whole thing. Yeah.
It's become a studio orchestra. We do movie scores and things like this. So we do also jazz.
Yeah, I love that. You have really, you have an amazing program. Like I wish that had been there when I was getting my master's. Like I feel like I would have gotten so much out of it because I was kind of intimidated and a bit terrified. The UNT 1 o'clock jazz band, there was this, reputation. And it was tough, like they had very high expectations. They're like, you better know your vocabulary. You better know how to do all this, And I mean, yes, we had aspired, I did take a few of the improv classes towards the end of my master's, and it was eye-opening. It was...
exactly. So...
Yeah.
So, like the 1 o'clock. So, for example, the 1 o'clock, since I've been here...
Yeah.
It was the first time ever that the 1 o'clock I had a violinist in the 1 o'clock, and now it's the second year that they use a violinist. There's one violinist soloist that it's integral part and officially part of the 1 o'clock full time. So it's always.
And who was that? Who was the violinist?
The year before it was Sarah Ager. She was a 1 o'clock. And then this year it was Isora Merino. She's French from the Paris Conservatory.
Nice.
She came from Paris and she moved here to do the program. So the thing is like, by doing this, I created was bridges, and the 1 o'clock is been here forever because of the history of UNT. But the 1 o'clock is not the only big band there. They have 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and all those big bands are equally good when we put them in range, like the 1 o'clock, the 2 o'clock. Actually, if you listen to the rhythm section, to the 2 o'clock or the 3 o'clock, they are as good. And,
it's a very high level.
Yeah, they all. They could be you could use the same drummers for all those big band. And in my jazz string lab, I'm using also people that sometimes want to play with the 1 o'clock and end up playing there. So the level is the same for rhythm section, and I'm trying to always make sure that they understand that the jazz string is not a sub thing. It's actually harder to play in jazz string than playing in the 1 o'clock, because in the 1 o'clock you can play as expected for a drummer. In most cases, they're gonna play loud. Because it's a bunch of horns, But in the jazz string, you have to play in a way where you play on Broadway. You play the way you would play on a movie score, the way you would play in a pub gig, the way you would play in a jazz with David Foster in a Count Basie orchestra at the Apollo Theater. So it's actually it's less previsible. There's more diversity in the music, and it demands more technique for the drummers and the rhythm section to play with strings, because they have to play with the same dynamic, the same intensity, but not as loud sometimes, just to let the string breathe. So it's like a lot of things. They're learning also how to play with a studio orchestra, so they get like the experience of things that you never get in schools usually. So
are your students playing, like when they're in Jazz Strings Lab, are they playing acoustically, or have you encourage them to learn about the world of amplification?
Exactly. I made a partnership with like the DPA microphone, and I got like 10 DPAs. It was the first time we were using that for strings in at UNT for the class. So now for performance we have DPAs, microphones. I'm gonna order more, and so during rehearsal, unfortunately, because for technical reasons, we don't have always access to engineer or to a PA table or mix table. So we have to play acoustic. So it's a big challenge, but I'm trying to talk to my chair to make sure they understand that performing or rehearsing should be with a similar setting, so we can work on with amplified instrument, because it's like playing.
That's a different animal.
Exactly. So it's like playing a guitar with that is electroacoustic, and unplugging the guitar and expecting that they're gonna play with a band. No, it's not. It's not the same. The same technique. When you're not amplified, you have to press on the bow a lot more, and you cannot phrase the same way. It's not. It's like playing basically an electroacoustic guitar unamplified, which is absurd if you think about it. But for string, I have to fight even with professionals or peers or colleagues sometimes that don't understand that strings with no microphone or with a microphone like this as a overhead is not the same as having a DPA or
it's completely different. You're getting like, If
they say, don't worry, Scott, it's okay. We're gonna put some mic overhead. That'll be fine. We don't need the DPA this time. It's too much trouble. And I was telling them, excuse me, we have a program. We're creating a program. We're trying to show an example for the world. If you're doing the same thing that we have been dealing with for years, even like in some case, people are uneducated and they don't understand it, and they say, "Oh, violin sounds bad in jazz," or "We cannot hear the string in a way," because you don't put the right setting for them. It's like saying, "Oh, the singer, you can sing acoustic with a big band."
I'm just going to applaud you for all of that. If it's worth doing right.
Yeah, exactly.
It's always astounding to me the shortcuts people will take with things that are necessary. Like if you're going to put strings with a drummer, you're going to need some amplification, because there's only so quiet the drums can actually play, and there's only so loud that the strings can play. So let's have the necessary tools to practice with. But yeah, let's talk about how you approach these classical musicians who join the program who may have never had experience with amplification or improvisation or anything, or composing or scoring or anything like that.
It's always like two different profiles coming. The one that have no experience playing improvised or amplified or different styles. And then there's the ones that are coming and that already have an experience in real life. And they're
all in the same classroom.
Yeah, we are all in the same classroom. So in order to not put people aside and feel like some people will be overwhelmed because it goes too fast, or some other will be underwhelmed because it's going too slow. I'm trying to always talk about things that are make a consensus for both situation, because either if you come from classical music and you never used amplification or in a different way, or you never like improvise, or if you are somebody who has been performing gigs around town in coffee shops or clubs or theater, like with an electric violin or even like electroacoustic, you have things to learn. It always come from so a practical standpoint that is not about the music. So it's always about like, what is your vision? What is your vision for your song? Because being intentional with what you want to achieve sonically is gonna give you intel on how to prepare, organize yourself to sound in a way where you're gonna be free to not think about amplification in a way. So I try to first ask them a question. What are you looking for? What is your sound? What is your reference sound? So by asking this question, people are going to understand like, oh yeah, I want to sound like this or like that. But sometimes in order to sound in a certain way, you need tools for that. Like, I want this kind of reverb. Some people never even, they understand that they want this sound, but they don't know how to put a word on it. What kind of reverb? Is it delay? Is it reverb? Is it like, Is it like a pickup that is a piezo microphone, or is it like a overhead microphone? Is it a DPA? Things like this. So we address this. I talk to them about this. What kind of amp? What's the EQ on the amp you're going to use? Like, how do you correct for cello, there's a different challenge than for violin, for example, or for viola, because the way the instrument is going to act with amplification is going to be a little bit different for the EQ. So you're going to have to correct or bypass different things. So I'm not talking too technically about those things when I'm addressing the questions. What sound, what bothers you? Have you tried this or that? Blah, blah, blah. So asking questions, I get more.
Are there any references that you give your students that you might want to mention for the listeners who are interested in getting into improvisation or amplification? What would you suggest?
So I would suggest, like, if you come from an emulation kind of like standpoint, so you hear singers and you want to sound like Frank Sinatra with a band, or you want to sound like Charlie Parker try to understand what's the mix in between the saxophone louder than the drums. Is it like under the drums? Is the bass louder? Like, so you understand in the spectrum where stands the sound sonically. Is it overmixed or is it undermixed? So by that, you will already know if you need amplification or not. If you want to be a little bit above the rhythm section, or if you want to be under it. So you have to. That's the kind of a reference I have. Like, and when it comes to the instrument itself, is it warm? Do you want a warm sound? Do you want a metallic sound? Do you want a more bright or darker? And then if you have artists that have a specific sound, like this, like Jean-Luc Ponty, Regina Carter, people that use amplification, with your instrument. Yeah, you have to know your instrument. You have to know what you deal with, and experiment, practice. Like we always talk about practicing technique. You have also to practice how to amplify your instrument and know what is its pitfalls and what is its strengths and weaknesses, because then when you arrive to a live gig or a club, you will know exactly how to save it, and like, what to turn off, what to boost up,
A lot of people string players, especially at my age, they're going to hear what we just talked about and they're going to, technology, and they back off, they think it's unachievable. Mm-hmm. But I would like to point out, like, all the things that you talked about, there are tutorials out the wazoo, like with LinkedIn Learning, MacProVideo.com, YouTube. You can find tutorials that talk, like, that's my favorite thing to do, is watch tutorials. I feel like people my age, or string players in general who come from the classical world, we have to get over that fear. Mm-hmm. That fear of learning technology, or the fear of failing or making mistakes. Like, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to fail, But, there will be moments. But just, I feel like if you allow fear to keep you from exploring new directions in your craft, you're missing out a lot.
But also, I agree. And also, like, what you said about, like, the tutorial, I love tutorial as well. I started doing this when I was like 14 years old, like the tricking the sound, the amplification. I was 14, I had one amp with 3 buttons, high, mid, low. That's it. And I was listening to the records and I was like, I want to sound like more like this, like John Coltrane, like sound. The violin, when I put the amp, it sounds very like a metallic box. It's very, I cannot play anything. It's like, it's really like too much. So I start turning to 0 or the high and boosting the bass or the low to the maximum and put the mid. And it didn't work. So I turned off the bass because we couldn't hear. And then I put only the mid a little bit and the bass a bit and the high at 0. And then after this, I found my sound. I was like, this is what I want. Like, it's warm, it's expressive still, and it sounds almost like acoustic, but a little bit electrified, a little bit like so. And it worked. It go through the drums. I can hear myself, and it's not aggressive. So I started doing just the simple thing because I didn't have a mix table. I didn't have a fancy microphone. I only had one amp and I needed to work with it.
So just trust your ears.
Yeah, exactly. Trust your ears and experiment with what you have right now in front of you, and before buying a lot of gears. And I think then when you buy a lot of gears, you will be even that much better because you will already have foundation in what you like, what you don't like, But
and there's still a few guitar centers and Sam Ash's open where you can go in and
experiment. You don't even have to buy things. You can go to Guitar Center. Yeah, exactly. In France, at that time when I was a kid, we didn't have Guitar Center in France. We have nothing. We have a boulangerie, baguette, and a croissant. That's it.
Yeah.
And then, anyway.
You wear a lot of hats. You're a college professor. Mm-hmm. You're a performer. You're an arranger, composer. Balancing these three, because those are three big things. So do you make room for or make space for all three of these facets of your career? Because it looks like you do, because you're jetting off to LA or jetting off to New York or Paris. And, you're either performing, composing, or doing, something with education. So it seems like you have a very nice balance. How do you do that?
I do have very different aspiration in life and in music. So basically what I always wanted and I still want is to create for myself and for others without border with my instruments. I want to be able to play my instruments. I love working with other projects, with other musicians. I love teaching and passing on my passion because it's part of a process of being a creative for me, like when I do that. And I never really liked colleges or university or academia. So it's kind of a paradox that I'm a professor because the way I learned it was with my heroes, my mentors, where I'll go to their place, talk to them about what they ate in the morning, what they do to feel like this, how the hand looks like, why is you wearing this shirt? Why? I was trying to emulate everything they do to understand who they are musically. It was not the other way around. I was not saying, hey, what do you play on this chord? No, I was like, what did you eat this morning? What are you thinking about right now? So, and it was normal for them. And they were telling me, and by listening to their life story, I was learning more about their music because it would make sense why they actually play like this or why they...
environmental factors will influence what comes out in your art form.
Yeah. So I was like, as a kid, it was always my passion, like try to understand why they're doing these kind of things in their life and how
what was in their head at the
time.
Yeah.
I wanted to know. And so as a kid, I would go to because I was a kid, people would be like more vulnerable or less closed because they would see an innocent 14 years old like asking questions, so they would not be like, oh yeah, you want to take my gigs or you want to take... No, they would be like, okay kid, I'm going to tell you what I do, come with me, like I show you. And in Paris it was really easy. I will walk to jazz club, and then sometimes I would take lessons. My dad would drop me at this famous jazz violinist place, or like they would not charge me most of the time because I was a kid, and they were like, oh, it's okay. Living in the footstep or in this kind of philosophy of the way my really ultimate heroes were approaching their life or are approaching their life, because some of them are still alive, and try to find this, because as a kid when I saw this, it was really like making me feel like, wow, I don't have to go to school. Because at the time I was going to regular, the school, like math class. I was like, they spend their life waking up in the morning and making art and making music and gathering with different projects, making bridges between arts. And I was like, this is like so, this is my calling. This is really what I want to do, aspire as a human being on my time here on earth, doing things that are meaningful, fun, passionate, intentional. I want to be part of something that's going to elevate my soul in a way. I don't know. Like,
I totally understand what you're saying. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So that's to answer your question.
So the balance is necessary.
Yes. The balance is this. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
What inspires compositions you write, and how do you balance your creative process between performing and writing the music?
When I compose or arrange or even like improvise, it's really about like being into a state of mind, basically, a mindset. So I'm trying to understand what mood, what vibe I'm trying to bring. And with that, I use my ears and my intuition. And when I start using the intuition, I bring the technique or the knowledge or the theory, if you want. But it's never the other way around. It's never like, oh yeah, I want to write something in 7. I want to write something with a augmented chord, or I'm going to write.
So you're not thinking about it from a cerebral perspective.
Never.
It's always, what inspires you in the moment.
It's always, sometimes it could be a car noise in the back, or it could be
a subway conversation.
Yeah, a subway conversation. Exactly. Everything in music, straight connection with life. So when I have a question, technical issue or something to fix, I always can fix it by thinking, what is it connected to with my actual life? Is it a psychological blockage because I'm scared? Am I what is it? Like, why am I shaking with my bow right here? Why can I play like this? Today, as an adult, when I'm scared, it happened to me a few times. Maybe like my first time at Madison Square Garden, when I played in front of 15,000 people. Like, it was like, it's not even the number. It's more like the people I was playing with, because I was playing with some people from the Met Orchestra, some veteran string player.
Oh, yeah.
And Stevie Wonder was here. So it was more like a high-profile gig. I don't care about how many people. It's not what is impressive. It's more the high stake of a high-profile gigs, because they pay their ticket for somebody is a legend, is a hero. So if you make a mistake in the show and you're gonna ruin the entire show. Like the same thing at a Broadway show. I play a few things on Broadway, but the only thing that I had real show, it was an off-Broadway that I played for a month. It was called She Loves Me. And I don't know if you know, it's very challenging. There's only one violin part. And so basically, iFets, I think, was doing the first recording or something. So it's very virtuous. It starts very classical, like a big chord, and then an arpeggio to the end of the violin, like. And it's the first line on the entire Broadway show when the curtain opens before the actors arrive. It's the first line. It's like,
oh my gosh, yeah.
I was petrified. I was like, wow. If not because of the line was A minor arpeggio.
Yeah.
A minor. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was. Okay. No, sorry, very fast. So it was an A minor arpeggio up to the last beat of a violin neck, and honestly, it was scary because each time I was starting before, when I hear the audience, I'm in the pit, and I hear the audience say, "We're gonna start showtime in 5 minutes," whatever, and I was like, I have to play the first sound on the entire Broadway show with people paying their tickets. And if I miss this line, that's going to be ridiculous. Like, it's so exposed. There's nobody playing with me. I'm solo playing, like, and then finally the piano arrived at the top. But wow, the first night, I was so scared of playing too fast. I'm playing way too fast. Like, it was okay. It was in tune, but it was way too fast. And the music director told me, like, hey, man, next time, like, easy. Take your time. I couldn't take my time. I was so stressed. And
I feel your pain. Yes.
So the next, we had 2 show nights. Oh, I think, oh no, maybe one. It was so long ago. So, and then we did another one the next day or whatever. And I felt a bit better. And one day I was like, okay, after a week, I was like, okay, I got this. So I was relaxed and I tried to play it. But somehow I was still scared after a week. And after a month, I think it was fine. But wow, that was like this line.
Yeah.
The pressure. It's just a pressure. It's not the line itself, but all the pressure that I put in on myself because I know that's the first sound they hear, the audience hear. So I'm not sure how to cope with that, actually. I don't
we would still have the same issues, Ted. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, sure you do. Yeah, I mean, like, look, you prepared to the best of your ability, so
Yeah.
it's like you've practiced, obviously, and then using what you've already said, it's life. It's that repetition. You said after a month or so, it was fine.
Yeah.
You just have to. It's the repetition. That's what we.
Even repetition of being exposed, because practicing, it's one thing, but performing in front of an audience is something else. So I was actually practicing. I remember FaceTiming or calling my mom, practicing in front of her to tell her, "What do you think about that? Is it okay now?" So I was getting used to have somebody in front of me listening to me.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Practicing. My teacher, Dr. Jesselson, used to be really big on practice getting nervous, practice playing for people. I mean, I used to fight him tooth and nail on that, like, because who had time for that in college? But actually, he was right. He was right. It's the one thing, it's the one thing that helped me get rid of the nerves. What do you feel the biggest challenges are in the current music industry today?
Let's say for my students, because this is what I'm dealing with right now. So I think one of the challenges that I noticed with them, it's with the industry today, it's like there's so much information. It's great. It's a good thing. There's so much possibility at the tip of your finger and so many opportunities to be informed, but sometimes it could create distraction for them to find their own voice. And by that I mean like they have a hard time diving deeply into one thing, like to really master the thing, like, and really get it into sense of understanding. For me, when I was their age or younger, and so I study so hard this particular solo, this particular musician, and I will understand them better, and then I will be solidified into my playing. But nowadays, like some people, they skip through like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that, and they never really like take the time to dive into a specific thing, like a record or a style. So when it comes to showing who they are musically, it's disconcerting sometimes because it's a little bit of everything, but I'm not sure where they place themselves. Like, what is it that you are? Who in this? What do you want to create? Like, what's the sound you're going to create? Because they don't have a mentor sometimes. They don't find the necessity. They have so many different influence, but they don't have something specific. I always had a mentor, one person, one individual that was my lighthouse in this learning process. So I was always coming back to it saying, oh, what this person would do in this situation, these kind of things. So I'm saying the challenge are the economy, obviously, the lack of focus in terms of identity as an artist. What is your voice? What do you want to say? And are you committed to do it regardless what? Because are you trying to do a trend? Are you to please the audience and do something that is trendy so you can get money fast, or you think you're going to get money fast? Or are you committed to whatever, express yourself and be an artist and try to create something that is really meaningful to you? And therefore you will be able to bring an audience with you and develop an identity and I would say like credibility in your presence in the industry, because if you stick to your path, it might not pay immediately, but it will always bring you a stronger foundation in terms of recognition, credibility, peers, and audience as well. So it takes more time, but it's hard with the economy. You have to make money too. So there's challenges, and the last one will be try to use the new tools. There's so many tools in a way where you can not disregard the new tools and not be like almost like conservative in a way, like being, oh yeah, it was better before, I'm not using that, I'm not a sellout artist, I'm not doing that, I'm not doing TikTok, I'm not doing like, and how do you take advantage of it in a way so you can be relevant and still be part of a party, because there's people using it the right way, and sometimes they are good at marketing, those people, but necessarily they didn't put the work on the music side, but they're so good at marketing that they still get ahead of you, even though you put all this practice. And you know, like, so that's the challenge for the younger generation. For me, my challenge is like similar, because I'm dealing with similar things as an older musician in a way. Like when people see me online or see me, they assume that I'm all done, I'm all good, like but I'm doing a great life for myself and I don't need anything. So my challenge is like, how do you show them that actually I'm not all good, I'm still challenged. I have bills to pay too. I would love to have support from grants. I would love to have recognition too. Beside the Grammy certificate, I would love to be recognized by my peers for some of the things I'm doing. For example, like bringing this jazz string program up to the world, and I never had an article in a French magazine, for example, or in a French music magazine, or there's no really like people that doing jazz downbeat magazine. Nobody is really like seem curious about what I'm doing, and I feel like I'm doing something that is never been done at this scale.
It's getting people to pay attention.
Exactly.
Getting people's attention and have them listen or appreciate. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with you there. It's really hard. It's, you know, you throw a tune up on Spotify, doesn't mean anybody's going to listen to it. You make a whole album, doesn't mean anybody's going to listen to it, like it, come to see you live. It's hard. It's hard. Yeah. It is very hard. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you for sharing that, because it's hard to talk about. You know, we like to think, oh, well, there's a formula for everything. There's not. Yeah, like some people can saturate the heck out of TikTok, YouTube, or, you know, and still nobody listens to their content, or, you know, they're not even calling it music anymore. They're calling it content. We call it content, you know? Wow. And you have a few seconds to get someone's attention. Whereas before, like, I don't know if you remember this, but you know, I used to have friends over and we'd listen to records. We'd listen to records start to finish, like, and we'd be engaged in listening to those things, and we would listen over and over again. And I feel like the attention span, like, you're right. There is so much everything. There's so much everything. The world is saturated because of the social media. Everyone has access to it. Mm-hmm. But because there's so much, you may or may not come across the eyes and ears of someone who would appreciate what you're doing. And so you just have to continue and hope that you will reach your listeners and or watchers, or whatever senses, or you know, your art commands.
Navigating the pivoting different way. I understood that knowing your audience, knowing who's listening to you, is a very amazing way to pivot in what platform you want to be pushing. No, and what tools you're going to use for marketing, because today the nerve of the war is to find how to do a good PR. So I always say to my students when they say, hey, how do you get a manager? How do you get like a booking touring agent, blah, blah, blah. And I always tell them, if you have money to pay something,
a PR,
start with a PR. It could be a friend of you. It could be the student, somebody that you pay hourly for emails or whatever. Even if it's like a modest, it doesn't have to be crazy money, but start. That's the first thing. You need PR and you need marketing, which is the same. Yeah. So because that's the way. And if you don't have somebody doing PR for you, you can do it for yourself. But you have to think about it in terms of almost like a newsletter or a journal or like a newspaper, but with a headline. Like you need to find a way to put a catchy phrase, a catchy introduction to a catchy photo, something that's gonna take the attention. Is what is it today? Like if you get the attention, basically you have done 80% of the job. Then the next 20% is like showing up and showing that you're gonna deliver. Yeah. Some people get attention and then they have nothing to deliver. So it's like a firecracker, like it's gone. How do you maintain your integrity? How do you continue making the music with the same energy and not giving up to darkness and despair? The way I found the answer for me is when I go outside to do something else than music, and I connect with other people's lives, like people that are not doing the same thing that I do, like talking to somebody with a neighbor or somebody who does a totally different kind of job, and you have to ask them questions about their life, about their struggles, about their good stuff, about their ambitions or not, or their past or their aspirations. And when you have this conversation with people, you make a connection for yourself, because you start to understand how privileged sometimes you are to be able to ask those questions and be able to listen, because you receive something and it gives you more perspective about who you are and what you do and how you can impact other people. Also, are lucky sometimes you can be in a place of creativity, because if you have this conversation with regular people, I would say people who are not musicians, you will find out that there's a lot of people, a majority of people around you, your neighbors, the people that you take the subway with, the people that you cross path in a coffee shop. A majority of people are consumed by something that they don't like, and they don't do, and they dream to do music, or they dream to do something that is something for them, creative. And when you know that you can do that and you have a luxury, it really puts things into perspective, and you're like, oh wow, I feel like I put too much pressure on myself. I already made it. I made it by just being an adult and still playing the violin. It's like, it's crazy. Like, I'm still playing. I'm almost 40 years old. I'm turning 39 this month, and I still play the violin. It's crazy. Like, so yeah.
Spring chicken. You're a spring chicken.
Yeah. 39.
Do you have any special projects coming up on the horizon?
Oh yeah, I'm writing a book. But I wrote a book, but 2 different books. I'm writing a book about love, and it's funny, it's sad, it's dramatic, but it's actually a real life story. It's not an autobiography, but it's a lot of things that I've been through, and about being a freelance musician in New York City. So I'm writing a book about that, and it's packed with moments of that you probably also went through, and also all the game in New York, and then the life outside of the gigs, the 4 a.m. Things, when you wake up in the middle of the night, things like this. So I write, and then I wrote a book about violin improvisation. Other thing I'm doing is like I'm releasing 3 different albums right now. So I have a solo project, I have a symphony that has been recorded, and
is this the Immigrant Symphony?
Yeah. Symphony of an Immigrant.
Yeah.
And all of those projects are funded by myself. So it's very challenging because it's very expensive. The last one is a live album that I recorded last November in San Francisco at Black Cat, the jazz club. It's an old jazz club in San Francisco, and that's going to be a live album, and with new originals that I wrote just for the occasion. And it's I just listened to the track today, actually, for the first time, and it was recorded in November. It took me that long to even like listen, and so I'm gonna go to New York, I think in a few weeks to
call me.
Exactly. Yeah, we should hang out. We should definitely get lunch or something. So
Yes.
because I'm gonna listen to a track and mix them, I think, in New York.
Oh,
with
nice.
Dave Darlington, one of the best engineer. I love Dave. I work with Dave for many years on all my records, and he's a family member at this point. So a very good friend of mine, but also an amazing engineer, and very kind and like fun to work with. So I'm gonna do the album with him, and probably Sunnyside Records was gonna distribute it. Distribution for, so we'll see. But so solo project, live album, symphony, book, and video lessons.
Well, I think the only thing what I would like to close out with is any advice you have for the listeners and I think we've kind of touched on it, but advice for people who are looking to expand their careers, and advice for people who are just kind of starting out in the world. Like if you had anything to communicate to them, what would you tell them?
So for the people that just starting, the listener and the musicians as well?
Yeah.
Both. I don't really, my first advice is like, don't listen to my advice. Because it's like, find your force and your fire inside you, because you have it and you don't need me and you don't need anyone to tell you that. So find the fire inside. It's within. It's not outside. It's not good. It's no magic wand. Yeah. And nobody's gonna tell you what to do, and any advice that you're gonna get from somebody else in the industry doesn't apply to you, because you have to figure it out yourself, because your path is unique and is extremely fragile and exactly as it's supposed to be. So you need to look within and find the fire, the confidence, and the courage to dare try to do it. And you're gonna fail, you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna have very horrible and beautiful experiences, but that's how you're gonna learn. So it's all those things, and it's part of the path to find your own voice. So I would say, do not listen to advice. Like, this is the thing. Do not go to Instagram and scroll for generic advice, or people that did it. Oh, I became rich because of this. Oh, I became a successful musician because I did that. No, all those things will never apply to you. They only apply to them. And that's why they can brag about it, or make podcasts about it, or try to make books about it, because they're trying to capitalize on something that is unattainable and unrealistic. So they're going to make you dream. You're always going to chase it, and you're going to buy their book, you're going to buy their methods. But at the end of the day, they are making money out of you. So do not like, listen to your own self, listen to your gut. And if you feel nothing, if you don't hear it, dig deeper, step outside of the thing you're doing, like music, and walk, go outside, talk to people that have nothing to do, but listen to them, not getting advice. So my advice is basically explore things, explore the world, and talk to other people that are not doing the same thing that you do in your industry, and think outside of a box, because by doing that, you're going to create connection with a museum, with a art gallery, and then they'll be like, we want you to play here, and we pay you 4 times a month what you get in jazz club. But if you listen to all the advice in jazz clubs, you're going to end up in a jazz school, in a jazz club, and you're going to be piling up with everybody else. So find your own path, and this is by looking within and going outside. So I mean, it's like a bit contradictory, but like, look within and go outside. But yeah, that's my advice. My advice is like, do not listen to advices. Just look for the fire inside you, and go talk to people outside of your industry that have nothing to do with music.
Be aware and be present. Like, go out and live. Yeah,
exactly.
No, that's excellent. That's excellent advice, to not follow or follow or. This has been such a pleasure to break things down with you, Scott. We're always so busy when we see each other.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your experiences and it's been a pleasure. And I am sure that our listeners will very much enjoy listening to this episode.
It was very special to talk with you and get to spend time with you. You're amazing. Thank you so much, Buffy.
You're amazing. And I look forward to seeing you in real life and in person.
Yes.
So thank you for coming on the Gigging Gurus.
Yes.
And thanks to all of you for tuning in to another episode of the Gigging Gurus podcast. I'm your host, Buffy Jacobs. Don't forget to be kind to your friends and family, your neighbors, and your pets too. And remember, everything's gonna be all right. Until next time.